Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome. At Team Kindra, we've been super excited to have this particular session today. We have been internally talking about pelvic floor therapy for, since kind of the beginning of Kindra a few years ago. And, we're really learning that not only is it a really critical part of navigating your menopause journey and understanding your body and being able to optimize your care, but it's also really important to understand, how do I find a pelvic floor therapist? What does it really mean? What's the difference between the care that you would get from a pelvic floor therapist or your OBGYN or your primary care doctor? And also, how does that fit into what Kindra does here for you, which is bring you non-hormonal solutions to help bring you relief? Quick intro, some of you might know me because I've been hopping on here for a couple weeks now. I'm Hasti. I'm the head of product and education at Kindra. I lead things all product development, formulation, all of the research that we do behind the scenes to understand all of the 34 symptoms that you're experiencing and how we can help educate you and empower you with knowledge and information through our emails, our blogs, our medical advisors, and now most importantly, having these live streams so you can literally throw your questions at us live and hopefully we can get them answered here, or you can follow up after. And so I want to hand it over to the amazing Dr. Ashley Rollins, who is a phenomenal pelvic floor therapist, a leading expert with Origin. So we're going to learn more about Ashley's background, but also Origin. And while you talk, I'm going to remove this very distracting thing in my background.
You bet. Well, yeah. Hello. Thank you guys so much for having me. I am Ashley Rollins. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, and I specialize in pelvic health. I'm the learning and development lead at Origin, which is a pelvic physical therapy clinic that is really designed around improving access and care to every woman and person with vaginal anatomy. We believe everyone deserves access to this type of care, so we provide in-person and virtual physical therapy services, and we're in network with most major insurance companies to provide easier accessibility without the significant cost that can sometimes come along with more of the specialized types of care, such as pelvic physical therapy. I do want to remind everyone, just as a quick little disclaimer, we're not providing medical advice today, and the information that we do discuss and present shouldn't be considered as individualized medical advice or physical therapy assessment or care in any way. If you do have questions or concerns that come up from things that we discuss, please reach out to your healthcare provider for further assistance, because there's so much that goes on in our body, as we'll continue to discuss as we change and move through life events. And it shouldn't have to impact you in a way that affects the quality of your life. So with that, we can dive right in.
Awesome.
All right. So I know that we will be getting or passing along the information as we need. So please hop in, like we mentioned, if there's any questions or things that pop up. I talk a ton with my hands, and hopefully it helps everyone understand and learn, but I also have props to kind of help you learn along the way. As we discuss the pelvic floor, especially if it's something, a group of muscles that are new to you, it can be hard to understand and really conceptualize what these muscles are and what they do for our body. But let's talk about how, first we'll discuss perimenopause. What is it? We'll go into how these perimenopause and menopause can then affect our bodies and our pelvic floor, and how that ultimately may change the way that we experience and enjoy sex later in our lives, and how we can take action. So with that said, by 2025, there will be over 1 billion women experiencing menopause in the world, which is a significant amount of us, with 65% of us feeling unprepared for menopause. It's not at all uncommon for the majority of us to kind of feel underprepared. It's something that we, I guess, expect to go through in our lives, but maybe we have the lack of information to an education provided to us to understand that there's things that we can do to kind of ease that transition in our life. Maybe the buildup is a little bit bigger when we go into menstruation, and it may feel like a letdown in perimenopause and menopause. And we'll talk more about why we can adjust that paradigm a bit to kind of understand all of the good that can come as well. So perimenopause. What is this? Really, this is the wind down before menopause. It tends to be a bit confused with menopause, but perimenopause is the stage beforehand when the ovaries are winding down and you're having fluctuations in hormones that can be kind of inconsistent and can lead to a variety of symptoms. Maybe you've heard of like irregular periods or hot flashes. Those are pretty characteristic of menopause and perimenopause. Mood changes. You can also experience sleep disturbances, urogenital changes. More commonly or historically, we talked a lot about the vulval vaginal changes that occur in menopause, which there are, and we'll go over. But as we kind of learn more, we've expanded this term to urogenital changes in menopause because I think it better represents what our bodies actually go through and kind of is more inclusive and accepting of the changes that naturally occur and that we can understand better to help better. The average duration of perimenopause is about 3 to 4 years. It's so different for everybody. And some may not even have symptoms of perimenopause, but this timeline varies significantly from person to person. Typically, we do report symptoms. People are reporting symptoms beginning maybe in their mid 40s, but the average age to begin perimenopause is around the age of 47, with 51 being the average age of menopause, which is more technically the time after that you've gone. So you've gone through perimenopause, and menopause is that time after you've had 1 full year without your period. It's kind of a little bit of the distinguishing aspect. Okay, so how does then this affect our body? Of course, we know that there's a whole lot of hormones changing, right? Menopause can largely be blamed on lower levels of circulating estrogen. And it's not just about the hormones, because our hormones can change our body in many ways. And there's a lot of systemic effects as a result. We're also aging at this time, right? As we become older, it's kind of like menopause, perimenopause, and we are aging all at the same time. And there's a lot of changes going on in our body that maybe aren't necessarily related to menopause or perimenopause, and maybe more of a result of aging in general, but they all happen together. You might expect to see changes in things like your musculoskeletal system, cardiovascular system, even your nervous system, your nerves and the way you sense things can change. You'll notice psychosocial changes, which we'll discuss a bit more, that can go even into the way we experience our relationships, the way we feel about our jobs and our stage in life, that changes. And of course, the urogenital system changes and urogenital system changes, including our pelvic floor. And all of these can impact our sexual function. Doing good on questions so far?
Yeah, no questions so far.
Awesome.
I just wanted to have a quick pause just for everyone here who, we love talking about the science and we love sharing all the medical terms because it also helps communicate with whoever your care provider is. But can you just explain a little bit, what it really means, the difference between musculoskeletal and urogenital in this particular context, just so that we know what's happening moving forward?
That's a great question. So there's some overlap in those two body systems as we talk about. Really, when I'm referring to the musculoskeletal system, we're talking about all of the muscles, all of the skeletal muscles, so the ones that we can control in our body. This is opposed to like our smooth muscle system, which might include like the muscle in your heart, in your gut, the ones that are controlled by your central nervous system. So I'm talking about the ones that you have control over, your skeletal muscles, also experiencing changes in your skeletal system. So like the density and makeup of your skeletal bones, your bone. The urogenital system also includes some of the muscles and nerves in the pelvic area, and also is inclusive of the genital and urinary organs. So this would include changes that occur in our bowel and bladder, as well as our sexual organs. So the uterus, the vaginal tissues, ovaries, fallopian tubes, and all of those things. So there's a bit of overlap, but but to maybe be more inclusive, to make sure we're ensuring that that there is an awareness of and information on all of these changes as it relates to our body. And also this kind of naming these things kind of lends to improved research and information that we can find, better treatments, and improved access for everyone going through it. So
Awesome.
that's a great
That's
question. Thank you
perfect.
for
Thank
having
you.
me clarify.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're so used to talking about the vaginal and vulvar tissues here at Kindra's.
Yeah.
So I just want to, point out this is a lot of new information for our community, which is really exciting. So if you feel like you're like, wait, we don't normally talk about this, this is definitely very new, but equally important. So
Yeah, well, the vulva and vaginal tissues are extremely important to your pelvic health. We'll go into that actually right now. I think it's a good time. And
perfect.
great for our pelvic health and equally as important for our sexual health, of course. So when I'm talking about the pelvic floor, I am talking about this group of muscles and connective tissue at the bottom of our pelvis. So and including the vulva and the vagina. So really our pelvic floor muscles are the group of muscles, as you can see here in red. They go from our pubic bone to our tailbone here in the back, and they go left and right between the sit bones. They form this hammock or basket. You can kind of looking down inside the pelvis. You can see this basket of muscle at the bottom of our pelvis. And these muscles are skeletal muscles, so you have control over them. You can contract them and relax them at your own will. That form this basket at the bottom of our pelvis to help surround and support our pelvic organs and helping to maintain their functions. There's several layers of pelvic musculature, 3 muscle layers. They're multi-layered, and they're also multi-talented, I guess, multifunctional, I would say. They provide, of course, like I said, a lot of support. They help to hold our pelvic organs, so bowel, bladder, uterus, up against gravity. They also help to kind of support and I guess better support weight, like as we hold urine in our bladder or as stool empties into our rectum. They help to increase support so that you're not losing continence, which is another very important function of these muscles. So you're not leaking inappropriately, and that you can empty when you want to in a comfortable amount of time versus having to kind of rush off or like run to the bathroom and thinking you're going to leak. Our pelvic floor muscles are very much important in controlling that. They also provide stability because, of course, as you can see at the bottom of our pelvis, we think more like our abdominals, our core is important for our strength and stability, which they are. But the pelvic floor muscles are at the bottom of our pelvis, our core, as we think of it traditionally, as the abdomen is on top, and they work together. They're synergistic to each other. So together they work better and more efficiently for our body to provide support so that we can move better and be stronger. And then they're, of course, important in sexual function. They wrap around, they kind of hug up against the clitoris. They wrap around the urethra, around the vagina, around the rectum. All of the good erogenous zones, right, in the pelvic floor anyways. They help to really help support the blood flow to those tissues. They help to support erection, male or female. And then they also help to allow for pain-free intercourse, either external or penetrative intercourse. These muscles should be able to contract and relax easily and without pain. And when there is injury or dysfunction in these muscles, it can contribute to pain with sex or inability or difficulties with arousal and orgasm. Also, they help to pump blood. Like all of the muscles in our body, our muscles are also really important in helping with circulation and blood flow. And our pelvic floor muscles are no exception to that, and really kind of helping with like abdominal pelvic circulation. Very, very important.
Thank you.
So
It's also so helpful to have this 3-dimensional model because it's
yeah,
not always easy to imagine the
it's
system
not.
coming together
Yeah.
able to help with that. And we
Yeah.
hear a little bit about incontinence here and there.
Mhm.
But I would say probably the majority of the questions that we get in our inboxes and our emails when we talk to our community, oftentimes what brings customers to Kindra is the dryness and discomfort or vulvovaginal atrophy, as we call it, but also the
Absolutely.
painful sex. So I'm really excited that we're talking about this part as well, because obviously intimacy is very important. But when
Yeah.
you're feeling discomfort, it's not enjoyable, but being able to see that there's this whole system working
Yeah.
and how we can kind of tackle the different elements of it, I think it brings some comfort, right? To know,
Absolutely.
help with some of the anxiety that can come with that.
Sure. Well, and a lot of times, especially if there's and we'll definitely go more into it, but just kind of as a note to what you're saying, these muscles, the dryness, the pain can sometimes be an indicator. Of course, there's changes related to menopause, but pain and discomfort can also be contributed by muscle dysfunction. And sometimes it can be a warning sign that there's more going on. It's very common for there to see a progression in pelvic floor dysfunction as we age and go through menopause, because of all the changes that we'll go over in the next couple of in a little bit. But if we're having leakage, it might be, there might be something going on with the pelvic floor. It can contribute to things like if you're leaking with sex, that can contribute to your libido, like not like fear or anxiety going into sex that you're going to have leakage with penetration or with orgasm. Um, Also, if you're having leakage and you're having a hard time with perineal, so when I talk about perineal skincare, I'm talking about like the vulva. Um, that sometimes that wetness can contribute to like skin health issues and rashes that can further contribute to some of the vulvovaginal dryness that we're feeling. So they're all really important symptoms that you can experience, and if you experience them, it's super common. But it doesn't have to be something that you put up with. And really kind of optimizing your pelvic health, as we'll see, can really help perfect all of the picture, I guess I would say.
Awesome.
So yeah, so these muscles, they squeeze and they lift, they help protect against leakage. They also release and relax to allow you to empty your bowels or have a baby or have sex. Very important group of muscles. So, what does all of this mean then so that's the pelvic floor. We talked about some of the changes that happen in menopause. What does that mean for your pelvic floor more specifically? Well, as we talk about changes in our circulation and nervous system, we can experience decreased blood flow to those vulvar tissues, including the clitoris. We can even see a change in size in the clitoris as we progress through perimenopause and menopause because of the vasculature and nervous system changes that occur. You might even experience a reduced sensation and like sensation to touch and changes in sensation that way, but also maybe like a muted arousal, like a reduced response to sexual activity. The vaginal tissues, of course, like we're talking about, can become thinner, less flexible, have less natural lubrication. Our vaginas and our vulvas, they love estrogen, right? Estrogen like makes everything plump and happy. If you just look at your skin as we age anyways, I mean, that's just like a small indicator, but our vagina and vulva even more so loves it. And when those estrogen levels decline, then we do have a natural transition to less flexible, dry tissues that can complicate or contribute to feelings of that dryness and that burning that you're just talking about, but also contribute to pain and guarding and fear that can come with pain with sex, because it's very scary and very pain. It's not something that should be painful. You also can, like we talked about, experience more of the urogenital changes. So the urinary side of those genital changes, right? Changes that naturally occur with aging that happens in our bladder function may have you running to the bathroom more often, or even the sensory changes that you might be experiencing can contribute to weakness in some of the muscles that surround the vagina and the rectum. So you might have more leakage than before. So then how does that all impact our sexual function? Well, we know it impacts our sexual function, right? I mean, anecdotally, even like as we're experiencing it, something's different. And what is that? 85.6% of the people in perimenopause will experience sexual dysfunction. So if you're experiencing it, you're in very good company. But what are all of the causes and contributing factors to that? It's not just about libido. I mean, we talk all the time. It's like very, like we think, it's just that you're not in the mood anymore. And so that's why we're not having sex, which is frustrating in a lot of ways because I don't like the way that it places blame on the person going through menopause. There's a lot going on in everyone's body during this time. In a high percentage of whomever you're coupled with, as you're going through menopause, is also experiencing changes. Whether they're going through menopause or whether they're going through their own issues with sexual function, such as erectile dysfunction, prostate issues that can contribute to urinary issues as well. It takes two to tango, I guess I could say, to really kind of drive the point home that there's a lot going on with everybody, and it shouldn't just rest solely on the person who's going through menopause. Everybody, as we age, experiences a generalized decrease in strength and endurance, which, let's be honest, sexual activity requires strength and endurance for a lot of it. And we're already kind of moving through those changes that we can't necessarily blame just simply on the fact that we've gone through menopause. Our joints may also have pain, or we might lose some flexibility in our body, which can affect our mobility and the positions that we are getting into during sex. And I'm not bringing these up to kind of being a discouraging factor, because these are all things that I know we can do to improve. Like if we can we can still improve our strength and endurance as we age, and our joints and flexibility health. And so these are really positive things that impact our sexual function that we can make impacts on as well, if we know what to focus on.
I'm glad you brought that up because when we're sharing so much information at once, especially for those who are, new to the menopause experience, it kind of feels like doomsday. And society has done enough of that, obviously, of making aging seem like a negative thing. And then on top of that, it's like, oh, menopause and, these negative associations, which is the opposite of what we do here. We think aging is the most amazing thing ever. But what's important is when we want to share these things that are happening that kind of feel like, oh, wait, like what's happening? Now I have to think about my muscles. Now I have to think about my pelvic floor. Now I have to think about my blood flow. It's a lot. But the key is we're bringing these things to our community because we can bring solutions. There are treatments and rituals and products and programs and experts, obviously, like yourself, that can help guide through how to navigate this. So I hope in this moment in our conversation, I don't want anyone to be discouraged. The point of this is to really just explain what's going on so you don't feel like we want to ground you in what's happening with your body. And maybe some parts of it you connect with and others you don't. So maybe women who are saying, yes, it's definitely it's like all external dryness and it's itching, burning and stinking and it's all external. Then we have some women that say, no, it's actually like mild dryness, but it's also, to your point, maybe like I leak a little during sex, like what's going on that's never happened before. And one quick note I want to bring up is we hear a lot of in the women's health, communities, we hear a lot about, libido can be associated with a mood, but it's important to know it's not just your mood, right? So it's not like it's my fault I'm not in the mood. So I know you touched on that, and it's great to know that, when we can think about it as just a part of your health journey and just kind of get to know your body again in a different way. Maybe you're not doing the upside down Karma Sutra swing thing that's women do when they're 22. Who cares? We'll find another way to make sure that you feel good and great, and so does your partner. And that's kind of what we're here for. So I think it's okay to find a new normal, essentially, is what we like to talk about. It's a new normal, and it's honestly could be just as great, if not better. Why not?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because we'll touch more on that, but also don't put away that swing, because what if it does help with the mobility, right? I mean, there's so many things. Yes, exactly. But also, so to touch on libido is not just about the fact that you're not wanting it, because potentially and commonly you are wanting it. You're really wanting to want sex, right? But there's so many things, like we talked about the pain, and our brain is not designed to just accept and encourage you to have more pain, right? So a lot of times when we experience pain in menopause, it can lead to like fear avoidance type of behaviors that our brain really is designed to protect And it can contribute to what we find happens is when we experience pain, especially as it relates to our genitals, our brain goes into like this like protect and response mode, and our pelvic floor muscles specifically, they act like guard, like there's like a guard dog of muscles at your pelvic floor structures that are kind of like, go away, this is painful and I don't want to contribute to more pain. And with each experience, with each negative experience with sexual function, it can make pain worse. What's positive about that is that some of the techniques that we do use in physical therapy, we do a lot of pain training to help reverse the effects of chronic pain in our body, to help improve those. So when, maybe you have been experiencing pain with sex, and it becomes more painful the more pain you have, we can work with those. A lot of times our muscles can be to blame, right? And we can work with those muscles to help untrain that automatic response that like any touch or whisper of sexual activity to my pelvic floor area is going to create pain. And to your point, like if we're bringing it up in order to like shine a light and destigmatize the things that you may be experiencing in this time in your life, because I don't want anybody feeling like they're the only ones feeling these symptoms, because you're absolutely not. There's a lot of us out there that we expect changes in our bodies in this time in your life, and we know how to help you. So to destigmatize any of the changes that happen to our bodies in pregnancy, we talk about them to make you feel more confident in reaching out for help, because there's so much of us out there wanting to help.
Awesome.
And it's not just your vagina's fault. Because sex is not just about our genitals, right? It's also about the smells and tastes and touches of sex that can contribute to the whole experience. So maybe there's pain in the genitals, but there's other ways to experience sex as well, and new ways to learn, like you were mentioning. So what felt pleasurable before may now be irritating. It opens the door for further exploration, different types of sex that can feel better for you now. And you may like even more. You never knew to look for them before.
Yeah, that's great. I love having
Yeah,
a new thing to focus on. And what's cool is now we can get into what do we do about all this? What,
exactly.
how do you support, what are things that women can learn when they come
Yeah.
see you? And I'm excited to get to this part.
Yeah. So I found this quote and I love it in a research article I was looking through. It's really that great lovers are made and not born. And we know this intuitively, right? Like as we're growing up and we're like awkward and like trying to figure out our sexual selves, and we're trying to figure out what all of that means. You get to kind of go through this again. But it's a cooler, like more, self-assured time in our lives. It maybe not feel like that in the moment when you're trying to navigate all of these changes, but it can also be a wonderful thing. There is a broad range of sexual desire and interest in our 40s and 60s. Really, there's not normal. There's nothing normal. There's not a normal, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So likely what you're experiencing is also what many, many others. 45% of us feel that sex is less important as we age.
Yeah.
27% feel like it's still really highly important. And there's about 28% of us that don't feel like it's important anymore. And that's also okay. As a pelvic health physical therapist, I really like to focus back in on that pelvic floor. We know that optimizing our pelvic health, our pelvic floor health, can do a number of things for our overall urogenital health. Regardless of our age, we find that people who are sexually active and able to have orgasms have healthier pelvic floors. So that kind of lends to the thinking that if we optimize our pelvic health, we can continue or keep an eye on our pelvic health. We can continue a sexual activity, potentially even orgasm as we age. Although as we age, we also find that orgasm doesn't tend to be the goal of sexual activity in older coupled intercourse interactions. Strong, healthy pelvic floor muscles have better blood flow. So pelvic floor exercises can bring blood flow to the vulvovaginal structures. And when I'm talking about pelvic floor exercises, maybe more classically, we're thinking about Kegel exercises. So and you may have all holding your Kegels to strengthen our pelvic floor. We're also talking about breath exercises, movement exercises for your whole body. that can really also activate and touch on our pelvic floor to help bring blood flow back to those tissues that are suffering because of abnormal aging and menopause changes. So it's almost kind of like we know intuitively to work out and exercise as we age to improve our and increase our mobility. And we can do the same for our pelvic floors.
So
What were
I
you
have
going to say?
a question about something you mentioned.
Yeah.
So it's kind of twofold. So um, the orgasm, we know, we talk about it, the science shows, that is
Yeah.
obviously supporting blood flow, which is something that we want. It might be harder to achieve orgasm given we're experiencing this new normal. So how do you know, what kind of makes you tick as you're experiencing peri or postmenopause? So I guess the question is, if postmenopause, and maybe even particularly later. So we hear a lot about women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who are experiencing more of the pain and discomfort and due to the dryness
Yeah.
versus women who are peri or in their 50s are experiencing, maybe I just don't feel as lubricated. So the reasons for having this change in relationship with sex can be very different in your 50s to your 70s and 80s, right?
Right.
But sexual activity may or may not be important to you. So if there are couples or those who are masturbating on their own and not necessarily having the goal of orgasm, is there still benefit that we're talking about aside from the physical benefit? Is there still physical benefit? Are we still getting the juices flowing even if we don't accomplish the big O, so to speak?
Okay, so let me make sure I understand your question. Does orgasm further enhance our pelvic floor health? Or are we getting, is enough going on with sexual activity that is impacting our pelvic health?
Yeah, I kind of want to
Okay.
discern here the difference between sexual activity and orgasm, because we hear a lot, I'm engaging in sex, but I'm not necessarily climaxing. And then we
Sure.
know there's
Okay.
also that kind of societal adage of get it over with,
Yeah.
which is either your own personal choice or you've
Mhm.
kind of learned to get that way because you're like, well, I'm probably not going to orgasm anyway. Why keep going? Right. These are the
Right.
kind of nitty gritty things that we hear
Yeah.
in our community, these kind of questions that are hard to ask. So we really
Yeah.
need to discern, do you always have to orgasm to benefit, or is sexual activity and other forms of intimacy still going to help you with your pelvic floor health as we age?
Yeah. So orgasm really is this more brain party, right? It's like where we have the sexual activity and the build up that then can contribute to your orgasm. We don't know everything as it relates in the research to our pelvic floor muscle function and orgasm and all of the exact physiology of it. Unfortunately, everything's still, especially as it relates to women, female orgasm. There's still more research that needs to be done. What we do know is that when we have orgasm, it is really our pelvic floor muscles do contract. It's more of a automatic wave of contractions in our pelvic floor. They can be rhythmic kind of pulses. They can be more tonic, like this rigid, like, the more rigid body type of contraction. It is an automatic response to that orgasm, to that amazing sensation that we feel. It doesn't necessarily lend to improved pelvic floor health. What we've had definitely had the question is, can I orgasm my way to improve stronger pelvic floor muscles? And the answer is probably not. It's just not the way that the way that our muscles, our pelvic floor, we need. It's not the same. We're not using the same mechanism to strengthen those muscles as we are with orgasm. Orgasm is a wonderful, like, feed forward type of, we want to kind of continue to experience those feelings, but we get so much benefit from sexual activity, no matter what that might be. That increases arousal and blood flow. So in that whole arousal can all of that in the blood flow that is brought to the pelvic floor is increased with arousal and sexual activity, and then orgasm occurs. So all of the good stuff is happening. The orgasm isn't necessarily improving our pelvic floor health. It's really not what we're seeing.
But it is
It's
improving
still,
blood flow. And that's what we talk about, right?
Right. But all of that buildup is still there. Even if you never achieve orgasm, you still have gotten a lot of good blood flow back to those tissues.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's really encouraging for women to hear.
Absolutely. And as we'll talk about, and maybe, yeah, I bring up the good enough sex model, which has really been found to kind of be a really wonderful paradigm shift as we age. That sex can be really good after menopause, but it does take intention, trust with your partner or yourself, exploration with yourself. This good enough sex model really focuses more on intimacy and emotional acceptedness, which is a really important aspect of sexual activity. It shouldn't be as orgasm focused if you don't want it to be. Everybody is different and has their own goals. But great sex can be without orgasm and lots of wonderful touch and pleasure as well. And we can see even, as we age, sex can be really good slower, more controlled, and less goal focused. It takes a lot of pressure off of all of us who are all going through changes as well. If there is this new connection and new, I guess, cadence that you can find with your partner. So as you're talking about how are we approaching this new stage in our sex lives, 32% of women surveyed feel that their doctor isn't really comfortable talking about menopause. And that might be true. It's probably exactly true. Whether or not they know that you're going to experience these changes, they may not necessarily know what to do. And the truth is that there's your OB-GYN or your gynecologist may not have had the training, and it's not common to have the training for sexual function and what to do for that. Doesn't mean they're not amazing still physicians, and we're not so grateful for their care and help for a lot of things. But just because they aren't comfortable talking about it doesn't mean that we're not here ready to help, that there aren't other practitioners out there. And sometimes asking for that referral can be the next step, or coming straight to us for help. You can switch up your sexual routine, spend more time on foreplay, right? That arousal aspect, where you're getting more blood flow and touch and sensation to the area. You can introduce toys. Explore different touches like we talked about in different erogenous zones, just outer course, really. It's not just about our vulvas and vaginas that feels good. There's lots of other different touch that can feel good everywhere in our body. And having this opportunity to explore can be really helpful. Solar masturbation is a great way to explore this. We talk about the use it or lose it kind of phenomenon, and this is a really important one to think about in menopause, where if we avoid sexual activity or don't have access to it, it can contribute to further loss of flexibility and pain. We'll see it often if maybe you've had some vaginal irritations and suddenly your partner experiencing erectile dysfunction and you can't have penetrative sex, or your partner is going through menopause as well and is experiencing changes. That gap in sexual activity can contribute to further pain, further loss of flexibility, further loss of blood flow. And so things like masturbating can really be helpful and continuing to encourage that blood flow and inspiring more intention and libido.
Yeah. So it sounds like kind of, if you think about it, like sexual fitness. So if
yes.
I missed a couple of workout classes this week and I tried to do a jump squat and my knees cracked, and I was like, oh shoot, I missed 1 week of classes. I'm already cracking around here. So it's like terrible, right? And I just thought to myself, wow, you better keep up with that. So what I'm hearing is a similar thing if you're a runner, and you're very consistent with your runs, and then you miss a couple weeks on vacation or things get busy with the kids or family, you feel that difference in your workout when you get back to it. So I think it's, not to add another thing to our plates of, okay, now I have to worry about my, sexual fitness too. But if it's just a matter of, can I take a little time for myself and have some time alone and feel around and feel good. You don't have to have a
Yeah.
partner for that. You don't need your partner around for that. How can you kind of incorporate that in your part of your self-care routine, and staying, sexually fit? That doesn't mean your positions. It means, how do you keep your body engaged in that? And I think what's really helpful that you're bringing up is, and we'll get to this towards the last quarter of our talk here, is we were talking a lot about things that you can do, but oftentimes if you're experiencing symptoms of peri and postmenopause, you're not inclined to do that. And for some women, vulvar and vaginal dryness and discomfort is so uncomfortable that even wiping after you go to the bathroom, taking a bath or shower, wearing tight clothing or leggings, even your underwear, the friction from your underwear can be uncomfortable. It can lead to bleeding, and that's not necessarily coming from the vaginal canal. It's actually what you're experiencing from compromised tissue. So we're like, hey, you should masturbate. Hey, you should have more sex. But you're like, wait, I literally can't even touch my vulvar skin. It's that sensitive. So we'll talk about those solutions, whether it's products, formulations, rituals, regimens, and obviously treatment, where in the in-between of your intimacy, in the in-between of those nights that you have with a partner, what are things that you can do to provide care so that when time comes, you're feeling healthier, and you're like, it's not going to be painful for me to just, touch my vulvar tissue. It's an important thing to know. So I want you to know, don't feel discouraged. We're definitely going to try to walk you through that journey of how to get to a place that you can actually engage in these rituals and regimens.
Absolutely. And your analogy is spot on, that sexual fitness. And just as someone who ran for the first time in 2 weeks this morning, yes.
How'd that
so
feel?
It's kind of like, yes, I know exactly how to feel. But yes, there's so much that can be done. So we talk about the pelvic health, but it's also not all up to you. And like I mentioned, there are, seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist can be really helpful in helping you find a pain-free way to help navigate these changes. We'll often use manual therapy techniques to help release tight muscles, to improve blood flow back to the area. So sometimes it's not just about, that reduced blood flow, but if those muscles are tight and contracted, then that kind of prevents further blood flow. And we can use manual therapy techniques to help improve the lymphatic flow to the area. We also recommend oftentimes dilators, or what are called vaginal dilators or vaginal trainers. Same thing, but or vibrators, dildos, all of those things can be really helpful. Dilators are especially important if you have pain, because they are graduated in size, and they can start really small, maybe the size of your finger or a small tampon. And then they can help to retrain your body's response to stretch. If it felt like a penis or a toy is way too much stretch, going down to a smaller size and learning comfort and release in the muscle at a smaller size, you can work your way up to improve flexibility. And it also helps with blood flow.
And
really,
for dilators,
really helpful.
Do you just hop online and order one, or do you reach out to your therapist, or how does that work?
You can totally hop online. They have some really amazing, if you just put in vaginal dilator, there's a ton of options. In a lot of places. Intimate Rose has some really great silicone dilators that are really soft. They feel very real, kind of to the vaginal tissues and that soft stretch. There's also plenty of other dilators out there for a lower cost option that maybe are more plastic based, but safe for insertion. Using them, specifically if you have questions, it would be great to reach out to a pelvic health physical therapist, because the way that we recommend the way you use them can be very individualized, and how long to use them and which one to use, and should you add vibration, things like that. It can be very individual to the person, and it's hard to kind of say specifically, like generally how to use them. But there are some really great tools and like how-tos to start with online. And if you're not feeling benefit, that doesn't mean you won't. And reach out to a pelvic health physical therapist so we can better individualize that type of care for you.
Great. Just want to make sure we all know when we talk about anything that might be new to you, obviously you can always email us as well at
Please, yeah,
hello@ourkindra.com, and we can help, either connect you with Origin directly, or we
yeah.
can kind of help find these new devices that you might not have thought about,
Yeah,
prior
yeah,
to menopause.
exactly, exactly. And really, we're really trying to encourage you to also build a support team. It's not just about one provider or the other. I think that we come together, whether it's a provider, whether it's wellness routines and products and things like that. We are all here. I think it like a lot. It can take a village, and we're all here to support you. And I think someone's care can be better rounded, more well-rounded with building a team. And it might include, your primary care physician or your OB-GYN. That's oftentimes the key to kind of starting your journey through perimenopause and menopause. They can listen to your concerns and take a problem-solving approach to your symptoms. And if you don't get the answers that you think you deserve, then find a new provider, because there are plenty of them out there that will.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling dismissed, I guess is my
Mhm.
point. And then, of course, connecting with the pelvic PT, we talked about all of the reasons, but it really can be a game changer in your 40s and beyond. To kind of reconnecting with this area of your body that you may never have really, you've always had it, but things have been working just fine. So there's never been a reason to fuss with it. And now may be the time, and it's not too late. Track your symptoms. Tuning into your body and writing down your symptoms is a really underrated way to support your health. And that tracking it can also be a more objective and specific piece of information to give your PCP or physical therapist, so that we can more specifically help. And then revisiting your wellness routine. It's a great time to revisit, those exercises that, we're talking about. Your whole body is important. So it's a great time to revisit your exercise, your nutrition, your mental health care, and things like that to best support you. And then really building a menopause sexual toolkit is foundational, right? We love products like the Kindra daily vaginal lotion. It can really help improve and be a support and complementary to some of the other things that you're doing, right? We need to work on the muscles and the blood flow, and we also need to care for the vaginal tissues. And using things like the vaginal lotion or the V Relief serum can be really helpful. And I would love to hear your insight about how you are seeing these help your consumers, your team.
Sure. Yeah. So the daily vaginal lotion is what we call our cult favorite. That's really what put Kindra on the map, and what, brought women to Kindra to say, wait, there's actually this non-hormonal solution for those who either choose not to be on hormones, are not a candidate for it, or would like to actually have an adjunct part of their care regimen to their hormone therapy. It's all like whatever you choose to do, it's your choice. So what we wanted to make sure was, for the lotion, this has niacinamide in it, and niacinamide is actually vitamin B3, and it's really, really a critical part of the cellular pathways that support what we call the skin moisture barrier. How do you keep the skin moisture barrier intact as we age? Because it kind of, if you look really closely, we used to say it looks a little bit like brick and mortar. I think in science we know a little more now, but we have, the combination of the fatty cells, and we have these structural tissues, and they have some form, they have some type of barrier to protect your vulvar and vaginal skin from pathogens, from bacteria, from irritation. There's a protective mucous membrane. The pH is very delicate. It needs to, ideally when we're younger, it remains between 3.8 and 4.5. Those are all things that are actually navigated and supported by estrogen, and even skin critical vitamins like vitamin B3. We don't think about that, what a complex pathway it is. As we age, what we call it becomes a compromised skin moisture barrier, and that can be reflected as tissue that might not seem as estrogenated, or red, or like you said, plump, because there's blood flow, and actually having tissue that's not feeling so sensitive. It can even feel like you have little micro cuts. It's like a little stinging, like especially when we urinate. So what we wanted to make sure was, let's have a lotion that can support the pathway that leads to ceramides. Ceramides can help give that like protective structural support. They're known to support that kind of adjustment. Then you include ingredients like sunflower oil, safflower oil, omega-rich fatty acids like coconut oil. Those are important for being able to support the skin's hydration, nourishment, moisture. So we really recommend the serum, ideally if you're experiencing mild to moderate dryness and discomfort. And we recommend applying that in the vulvar tissue and no more than 1 inch into the vaginal canal. That's an area, especially the introitus, which is the opening, which can be very sensitive because it actually has as many nerves. Yeah, perfect. I
Right, so
love
that's
this.
awesome.
Oh my gosh, like I always want 10 of those just everywhere. They're so
Yes,
cool.
I know.
Very
Me too.
helpful. So then the reason we developed the V Relief Serum was because I spent about a good year mining through all the customer service emails, reviews, feedback, talking to customers. And we learned that for some women, they were so sensitive and uncomfortable that even coconut oil or the lotion or water products from their physicians over the counter, it was just like everything was kind of irritating them. Like, well, that's not okay. If you're in a clinical setting, you might be prescribed a steroid actually for a few weeks for that. That's not a long-term solution because corticosteroids can actually thin skin over time. That can be on your face, on your arm, or even on vulvar and vaginal skin. So it's important that we don't rely on steroids long-term. You might have even heard that advice if you have psoriasis or eczema. That's kind of the mindset that you might want to have, how to be really careful and delicate with vulvar and vaginal skin. So we developed the V Relief Serum because this is actually more focused on calming sensitive skin irritation and discomfort first. Let's do that first, and then we can think about the dryness, although in most cases, you're actually providing quite a relief for all of those issues. So it's important to know, especially if you're speaking with your physician or you're coming to Kindra to learn what product is right for you, try to discern those symptoms in your mind. Discomfort can be itching, burning, stinging, pain, just like I don't feel right, I'm sensitive. Dryness can feel more like, well, it's dryness, right? It's something that we're used to on our keratinized skin, right? The only difference is now there isn't this particular layer on the skin that's non-keratinized. I like to say, it's important to know vulvar and vaginal skin it's like your gums. It's very similar, right? You don't brush your gums with an aggressive toothbrush. You're careful with it. So the V Relief Serum is really awesome because it's kind of more like a gel-like formula. The lotion has a gel texture too, but it's thicker, and the serum is really light, and you're able to use it, if you're experiencing all of those symptoms, try it for a few weeks first before you try to, incorporate either the lotion or anything else. Really want to calm things down. I would even say if you're feeling like the sensitivity is during sex, I would use the serum during the day if you know you're going to be intimate that night. Which brings us to a couple of things. One is we have a quiz on kindra.com. This quiz will really help you navigate, where are you in the peri and postmenopause journey on a high level. It's not diagnostic, but it's there to kind of give you insight. And in addition to that, when you share your symptoms specifically, we kind of help you break it down. And then within that, what is the range, right? So I'm sure you have this experience a lot, right? Which is, okay, is your pain mild or is it moderate? Is it severe on a scale of 1 to 10? These things help us decide what your regimen is and what products are best for you. The second thing is we talk a lot about lubricant here at Kindra because it can be a really powerful tool to reducing the discomfort that you might feel during intimacy. So we say the serum or the lotion, depending on what's right for you, use those on your off hours. All right, shop is closed. We're not open. She's sleeping. We're going to go ahead and just take care of her, whether it's in the morning or before bed or, a night that you're not going to be intimate. And then when you do plan on being intimate, it's really helpful to, pick something. One of our favorites is Taboo, Tabu. They've created a formulation that has actually postmenopausal vulvar and vaginal skin in mind. So that's kind of how we explain the toolkit or the regimen for actual, tactical solutions, because we don't want to just talk about the problem. We want to talk about what to do about it. And I will say we have a code today, Origin 20 for 20% off. Thank you, team. They always remind me of that part because I get so caught up in the fun, like, ooh,
I know, that was amazing. I love hearing about that. Yeah. That's awesome. I love hearing about the ways that people are supporting menopause and the changes that occur so that we are not alone in our experience. It can also be really helpful. We have apps and websites such as Rosie, OMG Yes, Dipsia. They really help with improving, they have like erotic stories, and they help with our libido enhancement. It can be really beneficial. Yes, Taboo is great. It's a great lube to put in your toolkit. We also love Dame products. They just really, as a very strong supporter of pelvic health in general, they have some really great products that can be beneficial for your sexual health. ONUT is another fantastic thing to try that can help with penetrative type, like a deeper penetrative type of pain that can help ease those symptoms that you're running into. And some really great literature like Come As You Are by Emily Nagowski. She that really can provide helpful language in kind of naming things for you to better support your exploration. Think Erotica, 50 Shades of Grey types of novels that can also be really helpful. There's so much out there, and we are here to help you find them. So
yeah, we're
just
just
at the end. Yeah, exactly.
Sure. So I'm looking over here to make sure I don't miss the very important point that Origin is offering free intro calls. So that's very kind. Thank you for sharing that with our community. That's super generous. We really appreciate that. I'm sure that's going to be immensely helpful to so many women that joined us today. Team, can you just tell me how everyone's going to get that link to the booking intro call? And then what's awesome is when you enter your email on that link for the intro calls, you're actually going to get the entire presentation that you had put together for our community. So everything that you talked about today is in this really beautiful, easy to follow file that you can download. I'm pretty excited about this too, because actually, truthfully, I messaged it to my CEO the other day, Catherine. Hi, Catherine, over here. I was like, this is the capital letters. I was like, this is amazing. I want 1 million of these. And it's because what we really feel like, you talked about access earlier, and I know it's not easy to make appointments with physicians. Especially I live in New York. I mean, my God, like if it is challenging, I can't imagine how hard it is in some of the areas where it's not as densely populated with pelvic floor therapy or OBGYNs or urogynecologists, right? Even primary care. But what we're finding that if you can get this type of information in your hands first, have more clarity about who to call. If you need to call anyone, can we support you? Can Origin support you? Do you need the physician? How do we have that discernment? And I love that you brought up the tracker, because especially when it comes to often what I hear about menopause, it's made me think, is it like your check engine light is on? Like, one day you're driving your car, everything's fine. And then suddenly it's like 6 different lights. And I'm like, I'll call my dad. I don't get it. And so, so I think that's, what we hear, because the emails we get are, I can't sleep. I'm getting more UTIs. Is it bacterial vaginosis? Sex is painful. I'm tired. I'm like, oh my God, like where do we start? Let's help each other out through this. And the symptom tracker can help you optimize sometimes a 5, 10, 15-minute call or virtual consult or in-person appointment with your provider. Right. Or it can help you actually stay in touch with us more, right? So if you start using the V Relief Serum, or you grab one of our core supplements for supporting blood flow or hot flashes, or you're visiting Origin for your virtual consults and you're getting into pelvic floor, getting into your Kegels and all of that, maybe you can track after a couple weeks. And we hear this, hey, I've been doing this. I've been using the lotion for a few weeks. Now I'm feeling this. What do you think? Sometimes we say, hey, take a week off, try the serum. Or we say, hey, no, that sounds perfect. You're on track. Let's keep up with the lotion. Our clinicals show 4 to 6 weeks is when you'll experience this, and 8 weeks is when you'll experience that. So it's really empowering to be able to just know what's happening with your body.
Absolutely. I love that. This
awesome.
is great. This is so fun.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say is if you're not getting access to the link for any reason, did we add the link, folks? I'm waiting for a response. But if for some, please fret not. Email us at hello@ourkindra.com. We'll get you the free intro booking link. We'll get you the file that you can download with all of the information that we talked about today. Anything you need, we're here for you. Camille's, manning our emails, and any specific questions that we might feel we're unsure, we'll definitely get that over to you. Ashley, we're so grateful for your expertise and your insight, and I'm so happy to have you, Kindra family. I hope you'll stick around with us.
Yes, thank you for welcoming us in. And if you have any further questions about Origin, you can always find us at theoriginway.com or on our Instagram at the Origin Way. There's a lot of, we work overdrive on really trying to make sure that you have all of the educational resources that you need. We want to have the questions that you are afraid to ask answered for you. So please check us out. We are here to help. We're also, there's no such thing as TMI at Origin, and we're happy to answer anything and be, if we can't be the ones to directly help, we have a wealth of community resources. So please check us out. And thank you so much for everyone's time.
Oh, thank you. We'll see you all soon. Can't wait. And join us again for our next live stream really soon. Check your inboxes. Thank you so much.
Bye, you guys. Thank you. Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Bye, you guys.